Hello everybody, this is James Costello from Catapult Learning with a sample history lesson using the core instructional model. Special thanks to Mr. Cerna and Mr. Moreno at St. Terbias School for helping make this possible.
If the Civil War ended and there was this idea that we had to rebuild the South, what effect might that have on America today? Good, so there's some different cultures, there's some cultural differences. And what was the major change to Southern culture after the Civil War? What was there before the Civil War that wasn't there after the Civil War? Tell your partner the main thing, hopefully all of us know.
I edited out the student interaction because the microphones didn't pick them up and for time's sake, but please get them involved in a lesson as soon as possible, both as a whole group and in pairs.
Take a look at what it was here, and we know we're either rebuilding or recreating the South. If we're going to have slavery before and not have slavery after, are we rebuilding or are we actually recreating the South? What do you think is a better term? What do you think? Recreate. So when you think reconstruction, thinking they're remaking the South. And so that's big picture or essential question is going to be, was Reconstruction successful? That's going to be the overarching theme that your teacher will continue with going on. And our objective for today is to analyze the lives of the newly freed slaves in the South during Reconstruction. So when we talk about these newly freed slaves, think briefly on what problems they might face. So they were slaves in 1864, 1865, they're now free. That sounds like a great thing, but there's going to be some problems that develop. So kind of think, what problems might these newly freed slaves face in the South? And try and come up with 3 problems with your partner. So at least 3 problems you think they might face. Discuss with your partner. They're going to face economic disadvantages. These people worked for free before. Do you think the people that own those plantations are going to all of a sudden start paying them fair wages? Of course not. So there's going to be economic problems. Great thought. Yeah.
They might not have shelter.
They were slaves. They had quarters that were given to them. Now they're obviously not going to be able to stay there for free, so they have to find shelter for free. Yeah.
Racism?
There's going to be some social problems with racism. These people that treated them as subhumans aren't going to automatically think they're equal from the start. Great thought. Did you have another one? Discrimination. So even if they have the opportunities or the education or the skills for jobs, if there's a white person that can do that same job, do you think they're going to hire the African American? No, they're going to have that discrimination. Did you have another? They're going to hopefully need some sort of financial aid to have a chance to survive. Great thought. Okay, so we're going to take a look at some of the key things that happened immediately following the Civil War, the start of Reconstruction. Again, we're analyzing. So let's take a second and focus on this word analyze. When we're going to analyze it, what does that mean? How deep are we going to get into? What's another way of saying analyze?
Yeah, we're going to examine.
We're going to examine. We're not just going to get the details, right? We're going to take a look here at these newly freed slaves, and I think you're going to see a lot of similarities in the problems you addressed with the actual history of it here. So if you could all take out a piece of paper and put it into 4.
In the I do phase, make sure you're doing all the talking and the students are doing all the listening. You're modeling what it is you're doing and why it is you're doing it. So be as metacognitive as possible in explaining your thinking process.
So for each term, we're going to do 2 things. We're going to create a visual for it to help us remember, and then we're going to write a sentence where we start to analyze the lives of these newly freed slaves. And then once we've done that for all 5, we're going to take a look at all of them. As we said, we want to break it apart and determine how life was for these newly freed slaves. And so our first term is the 13th Amendment. So you see this box here, 13th Amendment? That's this box here. I've kind of blown it up. So Section 1, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as punishment for a crime whereof the party have been duly convicted shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So I take a look at that, and that's basically what ended slavery. And so what I think of is I just want a quick image. I'm not trying for win some art award. I just want something quick that's going to give me a nice visual so I can hopefully remember the term better. So the 13th Amendment, I just think simple person here, going to have some that's him chained up, and that's what ended the end of slavery, the 13th Amendment. Okay? And now I want to use that 8 strategy that I know your teacher's been using. And so I have this sentence frame set up, so you can use this for reference when you get work on your own. But I'm going to put the term here, so I'm going to put the 13th Amendment. So the 13th Amendment was blank here, a step. Then I have / away from equality because. And so I need to decide, is this something that's helping African Americans or hurting African Americans? And so the 13th Amendment, since it ended slavery, that's a step toward equality. And here's where your English language arts is going to come in. I want a nice descriptive adjective put in this spot. So now I need to evaluate. It's a step, but how big of a step is it? And since it's went from slavery to no slavery, to me that's a huge step. And so I'm going to use a nice word like a significant step toward equality because, and I'm going to expand upon my answer here, the E of the 8th. The 13th Amendment was a significant step toward equality because it finally ended slavery for all Americans.
As we transition to the we do stage, the students ideally are replacing my thinking. I'm asking a lot more questions and they're providing the answers for me.
Okay, so the Freedmen's Bureau kind of relates to his point here that he talked about those financial aid. Just go ahead and read the Freedmen's Bureau to yourself real quick and then start thinking of what picture you might put in your box. Help me out. Give me something.
It's not apparent in the video, but I'm varying between calling on students at random and students with their hands up. Ideally, in your classroom, you could have some equity cards or equity sticks set up for the random calling.
So, and that red cross symbol, it's the symbol of aid, perfect. And more. So, what's a good symbol? I have my people here. How do we generally know that they're on strike? What's something I can give to my stick figures here? A poster of the sign, right? So I've got the sign here. Got the sign up. And then they might be supporting it, so I might throw a word in there. Like no, or close it down, etc. So now I need to think about my sentence frame for the bottom. Okay? Blank was blank step towards or away from equality because. So first, I know the term, so I can put the term in there. What do we think? Toward or away? Equality. Toward. Okay, so we'll put toward in there. Use your partner. Think of a nice academic way. How big of a step was it? You can't use significant, it's gone. You use significant once, so you got to think of a different term. One. So I heard some good terms there. Cruiser was a failed. Nice. Just thinking big picture, right? Long term didn't really help anybody. Gave them a little help at the beginning, but that's a nice strong word. So failed step toward equality because. because, help me justify that. Why did you say failed?
Because it was shut down. Oh, because it was terminated.
Shutdown's not terminated. Like, does it say terminated in here? Perfect. Good. So we're using our own words here. So it was terminated. And this is that site part. We know the exact when it's terminated in that term, right? When was it terminated?
In the to-do or partner stage, it's really important to get around to as many partners as possible to assess how the lesson is going and if any adjustments are necessary, either adjusting faster or going back to the we do state.
Nice. Okay, so as partners, sharecropping. I've got this sentence right here for support for you guys. You want to have the term, picture of it, and a nice sentence explaining if it was a step toward or away equality. So with your partner, go ahead and work on black coats. On your own. So once you're done with the sharecropping, why don't you turn your desk back so I can see that you're working independently, and think of your own image and your own sentence.
During the you do phase, a couple of students needed help. Most of them were working on pace, but that's not enough evidence for me to guarantee that the lesson was a success. I need to make sure I have an assessment that's different in nature than the independent practice. Some sample assessments appear at the end of the assessments piece.
2, 1. So remember, we're talking reconstruction. What did we say reconstruction was? What are they trying to do to the South? Recreate the South. And now, today we're looking at some of the steps towards equality that these newly freed slaves had. So we need to analyze that. And as you said earlier, let's kind of like explain it or decide kind of how it's going. So based on what you see so far, how well is Reconstruction going at recreating that Southern culture? Are African Americans starting to become equal? How fast is that going? Are they taking steps backward? That's the analysis piece. So I want you to use at least 3 of those vocab words. And in one of those other boxes, I want you to analyze the lives of these newly freed slaves. So come up with an idea of how well they're getting integrated into Southern society, socially, politically, economically, however you want to focus on that. Put a nice kind of like mini paragraph, 3 or 4 sentences, analyzing these newly freed slaves using at least 3 of those 5 terms.
Here's an example of an assessment that I would say meets the standard, but made an error like many students did with the term black codes. Great information for a reteach on that term the following day. This example is from one of the lower achieving students on the assessment, and it's an indication that I need to start intervention strategies as soon as possible so they don't fall further behind in the unit. Tying the assessment to a measurable objective led to concrete data on who met or did not meet the objective, and if the lesson was at the proper level of rigor for the student's zone of proximal development. I hope you were able to find some practical applications for your classroom, and thank you for taking time to watch the sample history lesson.